Hi everyone, I'm Adnan and you're watching the Adnan Nizar Show. Today we're joined by a very special guest. He's got over 22 years of experience leading M&A and PE teams across Europe and the Middle East. He's none other than Dr. Marc Nassim. He is the managing director and partner at Awad Capital, a leading financial services firm in the Middle East, headquartered in Dubai. Today, we'll learn a little bit from the wealth of knowledge that he possesses. Join me in welcoming him.
Before we start and move on to the questions, I'd like to thank you so much for taking the time to join us and for giving us a bit of your time, especially in a very hectic period. So thank you for that.
It's a pleasure.
Speaking of the Middle East, I would like to ask you what led you to pursuing investment banking in the UAE and in the Middle East as a whole? Maybe could you tell us a little bit about what led you here and how it is like in the Middle East?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. No, actually, I'm originally from the Middle East, so I'm originally from Lebanon, so not very far from Dubai, where I sit now. But I was based in France when I was approached to join Deloitte in 2005. They wanted to start a financial advisory services team back then, and I was one of the kind of founding team members of that service line. And I stayed for about 8 years with them, as most of the time, actually, I was head of clients and markets in the Middle East. But before that, when I was based in France, I also worked in the same industry, in M&A and also in private equity. So it was a natural continuation for my career.
Okay. What made you transition from private equity to more of an M&A realm?
Sure. No, private equity and M&A are very close to each other. I mean, it's sit at the same table, but from different sides. So I did M&A, then private equity in France, and here also I did M&A, and then I did kind of private equity because I was also at the family office, so on the buy side. And then I moved back to M&A at Awad Capital. So it's like back and forth between the two sides of the table.
So what's it like working in the Middle East? How does the M&A market or the private equity market work in the Middle East? There are a lot of sovereign wealth funds. So in all of those, where do we stay?
Of course, I mean, the East is everyone knows that it is a capital exporting region, and that has been the case for decades, with a lot of sovereign funds, pension funds, and big family groups investing outside of the region. Things actually are changing now because the governments in the region here, they want to diversify out of oil, and they also want to attract players from outside of the region to come and invest in the region. So that's the case of Saudi Arabia, which is obviously the largest economy in the whole Middle East. It is the case of the UAE, also the second largest, and other countries who are all exporting countries like Oman or Qatar or Bahrain. And obviously the non-oil exporting countries like Egypt or like Jordan, Lebanon, they have always been, welcoming to international investments. Now, to answer your question about how is the market here, I mean, obviously the M&A market is active, but it's quite different from Europe and the US, because things tend to take much longer than Europe or the US in terms of timing to close a certain transaction.
Okay, so it takes way longer than the US.
Yeah, exactly. Which takes, obviously, the US is the most sophisticated market, where you can close a transaction very quickly. Europe is obviously on the right track to become as close to the US as possible. And here we are, I mean, way behind in terms of timeline. I mean, a transaction that takes 3 months in the US will take 9 months in the Middle East.
Okay. And is that because of a particular reason in how the region is structured, or?
No, because I mean, it is as I said, it's not as sophisticated as the US. And sometimes, you know, stakeholders change their mind. I mean, during the course of a transaction, and then they want to buy, they don't want to buy it, and then they want to buy again. So things take time. The lawyers and advisors like us, I mean, we tend to put more discipline into a timeline, but I mean, sometimes we can manage to create or to reduce the timeline. Sometimes we are not, because if the buyer has some sort of governance to go through, we have to respect that. And usually the governance takes a lot of time. One probably major reason for that is that if you look at any entity in the UAE or in Saudi, for example, the board members, they sit on probably 5, 6, 10 boards. So they don't have time dedicated to only one company, and to assemble all of them in one room to discuss a certain transaction, it might take 2 months. While in other places, they can do it much quicker.
Okay, so it's in the technicalities, actually. It's not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Okay. So like in the Middle East, like what are like some deals that like Awad has worked on? Like some prominent transactions have been like some few raising finance for like a few e-commerce firms like Moderniza, the Luxury Closet, and I think that there has also been a recent deal that might be of particular interest to our viewers, like of Al Manthora, an education platform in the Middle East. Could you like tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, on the buy side, we have been working with one of the largest logistics companies in the region for a long time, where we are still actually helping them to identify some targets and to close to manage the process. This company is called Aramex. And then at a certain point, also we were running their corporate VC program. I used to spend personally a lot of time on that to identify potential targets all over the world to invest in as part of this program. And then on the sell side, let's say, where we are helping clients to raise capital or to sell companies, I mean, just a few examples, as you mentioned. Moderniza is one of if probably the world leader in what we call modest fashion, and based in Istanbul, Turkey, and we helped them raise their last round. The Luxury Closet is one of probably in the top 5 worldwide as well, in the second-hand luxury items. Also, we helped them in their kind of 2 rounds. Another one is Al Mentor, which is an education technology company based in Egypt. Also, we helped them raise their last round. And Al Tubbi, which is the biggest telehealth company in the region as well, based in Amman, Jordan. Also, we helped them raise around $44 million in their last round. So this is just a few examples. But also on the M&A side per se, was more capital raising. On M&A, for example, we sold one company in the technology space to PwC, and we sold another company in the tech space to one of the global leaders in the UX UI sector, called the company called Drevonic, and we sold it to a global player called Valtech. So these are just a few examples of some recent transactions.
Okay. For a few of our viewers, like what would be like one of the benefits for them to work in the Middle East in this sector?
Yeah, one of the, few benefits is that you have a lot of cash in the region.
Mm-hmm.
That plays a significant role in attracting talent to the Middle East, of course, because as I said, historically it has been cash exporting region. But also the other, just from a practical also perspective, they are until at least until now, there are no taxes, so that's
Mm-hmm.
income tax. So you don't have to pay 40% or 30% like you pay in some other markets.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure how long it's gonna last, but at
Mm-hmm.
least this is the case for now. This
Yeah.
is also
Yeah.
another reason why a number of people actually they sometimes they start their career in Europe
Mm-hmm.
or the US or some other regions, and then they come to the Middle East to hopefully to save a little bit more money.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's very interesting. Uh, like you've told us about like a few deals that Awad has completed over the course of its history and like over the course of the past few years. So it is safe to say that the outlook for Awad is pretty good in the current markets. But for the region as a whole, what would you say is the outlook? I mean, in like other markets, it's said that M&A deals is kind of slowing down because of the interest rates. But what is the case in the UAE or like in Saudi?
No, yeah, that's that. There is a major difference between here and some other markets, which is the lack of acquisition financing in the region here. So in Europe or the US, if you are a private equity fund manager and you want to buy a business, you put 30%, 20%, 40% of equity, and then you raise the rest in leverage from
Hmm.
banks.
Hmm.
This is not the case here. Usually, there is a lack of acquisition financing, so investors tend to put everything in equity. It
Hmm.
doesn't make a lot of financial sense, but this is the case. So the M&A market in Europe and the US has been hit hard in the past few months because of the interest rates going up. So financing these companies become more expensive. Well, this is not the case here.
Okay.
Obviously, the risk premium is increasing because of many factors, and also the risk-free when you
Hmm.
apply your discount rate
Hmm. Absolutely.
to your future cash flows is going up because anyone who started his or her career after 2008, 2009, they have only seen a risk-free rate of 0%.
Hmm.
Now they have to take into account that it's 4 or 5%.
Hmm.
So that has a big impact on the WACC, the weighted average cost of capital. When you discount your cash flows, it makes a big difference. Uh, Obviously, here we are affected because the currencies in the region here are all pegged to the US dollar. So we import also the monetary policy is imposed by the Fed, and in the region here
Hmm.
they have to follow it. So that's the main, if you want, impact on the M&A deals and the region here. But things are still going on, probably not as much as probably a couple of years ago, especially in the tech space. But as I said, there's still a lot of cash, a lot of investors, public and private investors, who are willing to invest or to consolidate some markets. And now the focus is mainly on good companies, because before a lot of companies were financed. Especially when we talk about technology companies who
Hmm.
they were receiving money just because they say I'm an e-commerce or e-mobility or
Hmm.
like that. Now investors are much more stringent and they want to only invest in companies that are either profitable or have very clear path to profitability.
Okay. So they're being very conservative with
With
their
their
money.
cash, yes.
Okay. Um, you mentioned the fact that in the region it's very equity financing focused. Is this like very is this because of their maybe like beliefs? Because there is this aspect of Islamic financing that comes into play, right?
Not necessarily, no, because you have, I mean, obviously Sharia compliant banks all over
Mm-hmm.
the region, but no, it's not. It's not. It's mainly related to the lack of sophistication in the bank. I mean, the banks here are obviously they are some of the safest banks in the world, some of the biggest in the world, but they don't have this kind of acquisition financing teams to provide money to leverage buyouts.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that. Even
Okay.
in some markets like Saudi, I mean, some Saudi private equity funds, if they want a little bit of acquisition financing, sometimes they go outside of Saudi to get money from international banks. So some of them actually are based here in the UAE.
Okay. So it's not just it's more related to the sophistication in that
Yes.
in okay. Um, just speaking about the debt capital markets and the equity capital markets, like for the maybe what is the outlook for those in the region? Maybe like, do you expect more cash to come in, given that certain like regions like Riyadh and like Saudi Arabia in general are like trying to expand on many aspects, or like what is your outlook on those?
No, no, definitely. I mean, all governments here are investing a lot, especially in Saudi. So in
Hmm.
Saudi, as I said, the largest economy in the Middle East, the main investor is the Saudi government through different arms, mainly the PIF, which is the sovereign fund.
Hmm.
So obviously, and then the PIF is also profiting from the market situation, also to raise some debt, even though they have a lot of reserves, and they
Hmm.
manage now probably close to $650 billion in assets. But it's very easy for them to raise money through bonds, through the
Hmm.
debt capital markets, and they are profiting from that. And this is the case for also some other big institutions or big corporates in
Hmm.
Saudi, for example. So yeah, the investment activity will definitely continue because, as I said, they have some mega projects, if not
Hmm.
giga projects in
Hmm.
Saudi. And some of them will be financed by the government. Some of them will be a mix of local and international investors, just as a couple of situations that were announced in the last few weeks. One is a JV between the PIF and Pirelli,
Hmm.
for example, to build a tire manufacturing plant in Saudi.
Hmm.
Another one is also between the PIF and a Hyundai to build a car manufacturing plant in Saudi, which it's like $500 million
Hmm.
JV. In both cases, the PIF will be 75% partner, and the other party will be 25% partner. So it is a very kind of recurrent theme to have an international player come to Saudi, partner with the government, and to do something in Saudi. And this all is about diversifying out of oil and gas.
Okay. And what are some sectors that you think would be, leading in that respect?
So there are a number of sectors actually. I mean, if you take again, I'll name a few. I mean, infrastructure,
Hmm.
renewable energy, tourism, and hospitality is massive also across the region. Saudi, Oman, Egypt, the UAE, all of them, they want to become a destination for tourists and to build hotels and resorts and so on. Real estate has always been a big sector in, for example, in the UAE, and now probably Saudi will follow suit. So there are a number of sectors where there are investment opportunities for international partners to come and tie up with the government or with the private investors.
Okay. Okay. What about like the manufacturing sector? Is that something that has been growing in the region or?
Yeah, definitely, yes. I mean, I didn't name all the sectors. I mean,
Hmm.
of course, it was just a few examples, but definitely, yeah, manufacturing is very important for all governments, and everyone is trying to become more independent from a manufacturing perspective, especially when it comes, say, to food security. So they want to have more FN and food processing
Hmm.
businesses that all, I mean, obviously started before COVID, but COVID actually accelerated the pace of localizing more food processing businesses because at a certain point people were afraid. I mean, given that a lot of food is imported, for example, in the UAE, when, I mean, supermarkets even were difficult to go and to buy your
Hmm.
stuff from the supermarket, people started to become a little bit more afraid whether they will be able to buy their pasta or to buy their
Hmm.
tomato sauce or to buy
Yeah.
the chicken and the meat. So that's why now it's accelerated the pace of localizing more and more food processing.
Okay. Okay. So as an entrepreneur or as an investor, do you would you say that Middle East is a great region to be in at the moment?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the future is bright. Obviously, what's happening in Gaza now, and hopefully
Hmm.
there is an end in sight for the humanitarian
Hmm.
catastrophe that is unfolding there. But yeah, the prospects of the region are very good for many reasons. I mean, the first, as I said, there is willingness from the government side to welcome more and more international investors. They are becoming much more open for business, much more nimble, much more, I mean, digital friendly. And also you have a massive young population that consumes, that, I mean, spends money on clothing, on food,
Hmm.
on telecom services, on internet, on cars, on many things. And obviously it's growing, the population is growing, either the locals or also from the expats who are coming to the region. So obviously for the next, I would say, 10, 15 years, definitely things will be very good in the region.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mark, for your time. I mean, I've taken quite a bit of your time already, but I appreciate you for giving us your time. I truly appreciate
It's a
you taking,
pleasure.
uh, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. And it's very valuable for our viewers. So thank you so
It
much.
has been a pleasure. Thank you, Adnan.
If you enjoyed the show, do let me know what you thought about it. And if you did not, do let me know your feedback as well. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.